would the community allow an industrial plant to be built in concert today, given the fact you want 5 wind farms and there's nearly revolution, there's an open cast and there's sort of civil unrest? Would the community of Concert allow any kind of industrial plant to be built here? I would suggest certainly my generation, younger, certainly wouldn't. Well, whether your generation would, I don't know.
They wouldn't, but that's not the point. The point is that we were built on, that's the thing, made of steel, right? We were built on steel. And it's a heritage, it's not just heritage as reminiscent, it's heritage of Concert. Concert wouldn't be here if there wasn't a steelworks. But you wouldn't be able to take a steelworks, oh, we're going to build that in the middle of Hexham or somewhere and start from scratch. No, I agree, you wouldn't be allowed to build it.
But you're seeing in the dust, not so far, I would say 30 miles from here, you've got Nissan, one of the biggest car manufacturers in Europe. It's employing thousands and thousands of people, and the service industry supplying them with various components and that. Yeah, Concert could have had one of those if we had the infrastructure there, but because it was the old airfield at Sunderland and it had the A19 next to it, it was beneficial. But I would say that if we could get something that could compete or compare against, I'm sure people would welcome an industrial base again in Concert.
But not
not a steelworks, like not a dirty steel.
Not a hard
something like that. Yeah.
No. I'm not saying that. You could get.
I mean, if they wanted to extend number 1 right away through to the Iveston industrial estate, right away through somewhere, by all means.
Yeah.
You know, a big just production line like that, I'm sure would take it like a shot.
We have a production plant down at Hounsgill.
Yes.
The food processing.
That's right.
It's doing quite well, but I'm sure, and it is sometimes a strong smell comes from it, but people.
The road.
You've got swans, right?
Yeah.
Years ago, swans stunk.
Oh, it was a crap hole.
Right. It's still doing very well, but it's moved forward with technology. It's still making the same chemicals, but they've had to improve emissions, smells, and everything. Nobody in Crook Hall or Red Gate, now they've got the entrance up there, complain about swans because it employs so many people. But they're now a modern chemical plant compared to what they were in the 60s or 70s. So it's hard to compare the steelworks of the 60s, 70s with the one of the 2020s.
I can remember.
Well, you could, because you could go to Middlesbrough directly, couldn't you? You could have a look at that and compare that, because that is the future. And you could say, what would that look like on Concert?
Yeah, but I mean, in the 60s we had open hearth furnaces throwing everything out. When the oxygen steel plant started, it was the cleanest plant probably in Europe until things went wrong. And because,
it didn't work.
you know, if it hadn't been nationalised, would British Steel Corporation put money into it to solve the problems, as you were about before, or did they just let it decline, knowing that 1980-ish Concert was going to no longer there? Because they knew what happened to Teesside with the big furnace. We weren't going to be there in 1985, 90. So we could have solved that problem with the red dust, which has become a myth. It was there, don't get us wrong, but everybody associates Concert with the red dust. But apart from the red dust, there was not a lot of other emissions came out of the steelworks.
So it was a high instance of throat cancer.
There was.
Yes, it was. I've got the book on it at home if you want to borrow it.
Not just that. Asbestosis.
Where was where
Get that in the
It was a cluster, a cluster, because it was a throat cancer cluster, and the lass, she was the councillor for Grove, Dot, and it was her husband, he died from it, and a lot of their friends, and she did get a grant to have a survey done of it, and I've got the copy of the survey.
Yeah, but that was ignorance. Some of them were ignorance to the problems. Now, it's like asbestos. I mean, as soon as asbestos mentioned now, asbestos is not a dangerous material if it's controlled and treated and the correct equipment is worn. So now, if there was chemicals floating around the company, people would wear, because of health and safety, you would wear the right protection.
What did they give us when we went and changed a thermocouple on the furnaces, John?
Exactly.
Asbestos gloves, asbestos clogs.
Yeah. I used to wear
asbestos cord.
I used to wear asbestos gowns to keep the heat off us.
There's nothing wrong with asbestos per se.